Hello, people. All right. Oh, sit down, everybody. Relax. Those who don't want to prostrate, relax. All right. Okay, people. Well, look at you. Okay.
Welcome, Venerable. Welcome. And hi, Nina. Welcome.
Tara, I will say a few words. I think you probably
Yes.
have a few welcome words as well, but we have so many people here in the center that I just wanted to give a special welcome. Well, for everybody who came here to Laksam in Zurich, and for all those people around the world, almost 40 of you on Zoom, who maybe someday will come to Zurich. You're all very cordially invited. And of course, to our special guest, Venerable Robina, where some people were here new and were asking if you are here every week. And I said, we wish, but unfortunately not yet. We're so happy to have you here and start this new module of, this is module 6 already. So we are almost on halfway mark with DB for those who are doing it from the very start. And the module is a very special, very important one called All About Karma. So we are very, very excited for this time together to study this important topic together and with, of course, from Venerable Robina. So thank you very much for being here, everyone. We hope that you will enjoy the evening. And Venerable, we would like to start with Mandala offering for the new module. And then we're future prayer will lead us through it. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you.
So this mandala is Tibetan kind of style, and it's got meaning. It's a ritual, but it's got meaning. If a ritual hasn't got meaning, you shouldn't do it. It's a load of rubbish. So this so-called ritual, this thing we're going to do, sing a little prayer, and it's offering. We're imagining, what we can do is just imagine all the precious things of the world that make people happy in our mind, piling them all up and making an offering to the Buddha, thinking as a request for these teachings, okay? But what's also going to offer? We're going to offer a thing that represents the universe. And they're also going to offer representations of enlightened body, speech, and mind, a statue, a text, and a stupa. So that kind of creates the cause for us to achieve those qualities. So it has this meaning. It's very nice meaning. So we just sing a little prayer. Last will lead it. And you can just imagine in your mind making an offering to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. Okay.
Sashi
Metod Chamrirab Linji Gen Padi Sangeji Last, I'm listening. So now we request the teachings. Go on, Lars.
Yep,
Put it up there.
coming.
Lars, do it.
Jetsun
Lama Jampa Kiram Kichakukala Kien
Sechu Sintri Gita Sampe
As we said mantra, we imagine Buddha happily receiving our offering. Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Okay, so now this next little prayer is 2 parts. Always we say this first. The first 2 lines. For those of us who already identify with being Buddhists, it's reiterating our reliance on the Buddha, our refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. And the second 2 lines are stating our motivation, as the Tibetans would put it. We might say, what's our purpose? stating our purpose for being together, and it's to listen to these teachings, hear it as advice. We don't have to take it. That's up to us. We're not, Buddha's not the boss. He's not forcing us. But to hear it as advice, and if there's something that's useful, then we put it into practice. And why? So we can develop our own amazing potential, so we can be of benefit to others. That's the idea. Sangye chadang toke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonan ki drola penche sangye drupa shok Sangye chadang toke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonan ki drola penche sangye drupa shok Sangye chadang toke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok. Okay. So the way, if you listen to a Tibetan person teaching, because the view in Tibet, which has been there for 1200 years, and because it came from the Indian view, which is there another 1200, 2000 years before that, the view of karma is just taken for granted. It's like if you have a religion in the West, we take it for granted it means a creator. So you don't have to explain it, So here too, the way it's taught in Tibet, it's as a given, but because for us in our culture, who are either used to the philosophical materialist view that says that we're made by our mother and father, and we track ourselves back to the monkeys, and that we're physical only. And second, if we're used to the Christian view, the Muslim view, for example, that we come from a creator, our source is a creator. In other words, both of these views share the one view that we're created by someone else. Well, that's not the Buddha's view. So we can't just teach the karmic view as a given, because we have to explain it in really down to earth terms. Because when we hear about karma, we simply plonk, let's say, the creator religious view of a creator, a boss, punishment, reward. We plonk that onto the karmic view, and it's totally mistaken. So we really, for me, I stress it continuously, how to listen properly to the idea of karma. Because normally we hear it, you do bad things and you suffer in the future. You do good things, you get happy in the future. It sounds just exactly like punishment and reward. But in Buddhism, it's so clear, and I stress this continuously, and this is how we have to think about it if we're wanting to understand what Buddha is saying. He is not a creator. There is no concept of a creator in Buddhism. It's a shock to us because we assume religion means a creator, We just think Buddha is an alternative to Jesus or something. Not like that. This is a fundamental difference in Buddhism. Fundamental difference. So what is it? So this law of karma, for as far as Buddha is concerned, he has observed with his own mind, clearly at a subtler level. This is the whole point. When we learn about the mind, we learn right at the beginning in discovering Buddhism that mind is not physical. Mind has got subtler levels of cognition that we don't even posit as existing in the philosophical materialist view, or in the neuroscientific view, or in the modern psychological views. We only talk about the brain. That's what we mean by mind. Buddha does not mean the brain. He's not saying we don't have a brain. But I always say this without insulting neuroscientists. You could say that the physical part of us, the brain, genes, DNA, and all this, they are physical indicators of what's going on in our mind. It's a hugely different view. It takes time to get used to it, assuming we want to understand Buddhism. So the mind is not physical. The mind has got subtler levels of cognition, much subtler, that we don't even posit as existing. The brain is a physical indicator of what goes on at the grossest level of mind only. So Buddhism's got this whole other area that does not exist in modern psychology or neuroscience. We have to remember that. And we're not discussing here something secret and mystical like a soul. Buddhism does not use the word soul or spirit. He uses the word mind or consciousness, and they refer to the grosser level, the sensory, the conceptual, thoughts, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious, instinct, intuition, the entire spectrum of our inner being. This is known as mind or consciousness in Buddhism. So this, one, two, it's got these subtle levels of cognition. Three, it is not the handiwork of a creator. There's no concept like that in Buddhism. We don't need creating as far as Buddha is concerned. Why? Because we create ourselves. Speaking simply, Dalai Lama said, karma is like self-creation. That's what we're going to describe, you know. So it's a very different view. We can't just sort of assume it just means the same as punishment reward, you know, it's just too naive. So the law of karma that Buddha has observed with his own mind, he didn't make it up, he's not a creator. There's no concept like that, as I said. He just made things up. He didn't invent it. It's not his job, you know. He's observed that the law that basically runs the universe, or the law, I like to say, the law that within which the universe runs. I mean, the law that runs gardens is botany. The law within which gardens run, if you like, is botany. The law that governs gardens. And what is that law? We've identified it, haven't we? Clever people have observed growing things and have articulated what they've observed, and that's called the law of botany. They didn't create it. That's the point here. For the Buddha, it's only natural law. It's natural law. Christianity talks about God's law, that God is the boss. God created, you know, the laws of morality. God created the universe. God created me. God is the boss. God punishes. God rewards. There's no concept like that in Buddhism. You keep remembering that. And it's a law that's a natural law. Buddha and beings since the time of the Buddha who practiced what Buddha said, have achieved the same realizations, have observed, and we eventually can observe it as true. Or, as the Dalai Lama says, if we choose to practice Buddha's methodology and we tick the boxes as we go, and at some point we discover from our own direct experience that what Buddha has observed to be true isn't true, we must reject the Buddha. So the onus is on us, you know. Buddha's like an advisor, a mentor. He's telling us what he's found to be true. It's up to us to see the same thing. And if you discover he's wrong, thank you, Buddha, goodbye. That's it, you know. So the law of karma, Sanskrit word, I don't know, I don't speak Sanskrit. I've heard it means something like the word action or something, you know. But what it's referring to is this natural law such that anything any mind thinks or does or says, any sentient being, in Tibetan sem chen, mind possessor. I like it's a very delicious term. I think that's better than sentient being. There are trillions of mind possessors. Trillions. Humans are a tiny percentage. Animals are mind possessors. There are spirits, there are hell beings, there are gods, many kinds of other beings that are not visible to our eyes. You know, with different levels of consciousnesses, sentient beings, mind possessors, sem-chens. There are trillions of us. And the natural law that runs our minds, that runs within our minds, that our mind runs within, is this law of cause and effect, such that everything we think and do and say, just naturally, if you like, programs that mind. It's a really good way to put it. Buddha would have liked that concept. They use, in Buddha's day, they use the concept of the law of planting seeds and fruits, you know, so seeds and fruits. So everything you think and do and say sows a seed in your mind, leaves an imprint in your mind, leaves an impression in your mind, programs your mind, leaves a seed in your mind. And seeds, by definition, will eventually ripen as various fruits. It's always the analogy that Buddha uses. So the fundamental law that Buddha has observed is that an act, and because, like I said, the word you can say it means action, but including and starting with mental action. The mind is really what runs the show. The mind, starting with intention, volition, I will, starts the process of what we do with our body and speech. The mind is really the boss. So the creation of karma starts with the mind. Mental action, intention, volition. So actions done by, the first level, actions done by the body or the speech, driven by the mental intention to do it, which is in turn driven by anger, attachment, jealousy, all the neurotic states of mind. An action like that sows a seed in the mind, which the Buddha has found will necessarily ripen in the future as suffering. That's what he's observed. It's not punishment. There's no punisher. It's just a natural law. And that an action done by a mind, an action done by body and speech, driven by the intention to do it, underpinned by a positive state of mind, love, compassion, generosity, forgiveness, kindness, necessarily sows a seed in the mind that will ripen in the future in that mind as happiness. That's the fundamental law. That's the law. That's the fundamental principle of karma. So like I said, Buddha didn't invent this. He's not an inventor. A botanist doesn't invent botany. They've observed botany. They've learned the laws of botany, and so use that to help them grow a garden. So in the sense that you could say our life is our garden. Whatever we meet, whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we experience is the fruit of the seeds we have planted in the past in our mind. So of course, we have to take on board this view, which we discussed in module 1, that consciousness is not physical. It's not the handiwork of mummy or daddy. It doesn't come from a creator. And it certainly did not start at the time of conception. If you're a Christian, God puts the soul there, so you track yourself back to God. If you're a materialist, your mummy and daddy, the egg and sperm come together and you begin there and you track yourself back to mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and the monkeys. Your body, no problem. Track it back to the monkeys. That's evident. If you like, you can say like that. Although not quite like that. But there's no role of a creator in Buddhism. You don't track yourself back to any holy being. In fact, the idea in Buddhism, the more we study Buddhism, the more we understand this concept of karma and the way the mind works, the idea that your source is someone else is a very weird idea for the Buddhist view. Very peculiar. Not a possibility. Not viable. Not possible. Of course, you can't just believe that. You've got to look into it. So what is the consciousness? As we know from our discussion on consciousness, you track your consciousness back to previous moments of today, and you track that back to yesterday, and you track it back to yesterday, and you keep tracking back. It's an unbroken chain of mental moments that inexorably you get back to the first second in your mummy's fallopian tube. So you track your egg back to mummy's body, the sperm back to daddy's body, and where do you track your consciousness back to? A previous moment of that river of mental moments, of this continuity of mind. And you track that back a few weeks before, and it was in a previous body, and so on, and back and back. That's the Buddha's view. That's the Buddha's observation. That's the Buddha's presentation of reality. Don't believe him. Don't disbelieve him. Take it as your hypothesis. And eventually, as we practice, we will prove either that Buddha is right or he is wrong. There's no other option. That's why you see, our trouble is we're so used to thinking of religion as a belief system. And then we think, well, I'm allowed to believe what I like. And we make up our own every day. You can do that. You can believe that 1 + 1 is 4 if you want to. No problem. You won't get very far. You can even believe that 1 + 1 is 2. It won't get you far either. You've got to prove it to be true. And this is the part that's quite shocking in religion. We think if you're saying it's true, then you're being fundamentalist, you know? And there's nothing wrong with saying something is right. This is the interesting point. Einstein is allowed to tell you that E does equal mc², and he then has to prove it to you. And you prove it to yourself. And if he is wrong, you say, thank you, Einstein, and he'll be happy to prove. He'll be happy to be proven wrong if you can show him the truth. We're not used to thinking religion like that. We think it is true, and then we're fundamentalists, and we become sectarian, and we have wars on each other, you know. It's quite shocking to hear that Buddha's either right or wrong. It's too shocking for us to hear that. We then think, well, we're all allowed to believe what we like, and as long as we get along, it's true. As long as we do get along and don't criticize each other, that's okay. But the Buddha's view is not a question of just believing in something, and you're allowed to believe what you like. You are allowed to believe what you like. But what good is that? What good is that? Buddha's telling you this is truth, but he's not saying you have to believe him. In fact, he's saying, don't believe me, go check it out. This is the crucial part, you know. There's nothing wrong with saying he is right. He's allowed to say that he's right. So is Einstein. They're allowed to say they're right. So is Jesus. But don't just sit there blindly believing that E = mc² won't get you far. Merely believing that 1 + 1 is 2 will not get you far. You have to prove it to be true. This is initially quite shocking to us. Because if you believe in God, you can't prove that God is right. That's the worst arrogance possible, because that means you become God, and you can't do that. Whereas the Buddhist view is you will become the Buddha. Everybody has the potential to achieve exactly what Buddha achieved, which is perfection, of the goodness and the ridding of the mind of the rubbish. So it's in many ways, very different view. So Buddha is telling us that what he has observed is this law of cause and effect. So as a Buddhist, from the very beginning, you take it as your hypothesis and you attempt to apply it to your daily life. That's how you put your money where your mouth is, how you put it into practice. So if it is true that actions done by your body and speech, driven by the intention to do it, underpinned by a motivation called negative one, will ripen as your future suffering, then you better learn to know what that suffering looks like. And then you've got to decide, do I want that or not? And if you decide you don't want it, then you better stop creating the causes for it, because we're in charge. And if you know you do want happiness, you better decide what is a positive action done by body and speech, driven by the intention to do it, underpinned by a positive motivation. Then you better learn to know what that is if you want happiness. And you better just understand what Buddha means by happiness. What to learn it, in other words. Just add our own meaning to these words, learn to know what Buddha means by it. So the Buddha is saying, minds are beginningless, minds are not physical, no role of a creator, don't need creating. The law of karma is self-creation. Each individual being in the universe is experiencing each second the fruits of their own past actions. All the happiness is the fruit of your past virtue. All your suffering is the fruit of your past non-virtue. Of course, it's shockingly different from how we think. Shockingly different. We think happiness and suffering are good luck and bad luck. We think it happens to us from out there. We think we're innocent victims who didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. We've got very different views deep in our bones. And the view of karma kind of bashes into that, so we really got to think about it carefully. And then attempt to apply it, not to merely believe it. That's an utter waste of time. It's not helpful. You can believe in math. You can believe that 1 + 1 is 2. And actually, you can manage to live your life because enough people know math. But if your mother says, go buy 5 oranges for me, you don't know how to count, you'll be useless. But believing isn't enough. Who's that? Who's making a noise out there? Mute yourself. Who is? You. Naughty Jeff.
Mute yourself.
There you go. You have to mute yourself, Jeff. Not Jeff. He's not doing anything. Who's the naughty person? I'm just joking.
No, it's find them.
Okay. So anyway, so far so good, people. All right. Good. Tara's happy. So let's unpack this law, which we'll do in the next 3 or 4 weeks. How many weeks have we got? 4?
4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay. Have to unpack it. So like I keep saying, every module, you've got the wonderful course notes. You need to read the course notes because you're going to read lots of things in there that I mightn't be saying. And there'll be things that I will say that you won't read in the course notes. You get a combination of both and you'll end up with a fairly reasonable coverage of the law of karma, okay? So basically the summary is this. There are trillions upon trillions upon trillions of mind possessors, consciousnesses, sentient beings, all of us experiencing different levels of happiness and suffering. And as we know, the Buddha divides all this into these different realms of existence, realms of existence, all basically on the spectrum of enormous joy to intense suffering. And every one of these sentient beings, the trillions upon trillions, each millisecond we are experiencing happiness or suffering. And this is kind of an interesting concept because it almost seems so simple. You mean it's all it is happiness and suffering? You mean that? When you analyze your life, you will agree with that. One way of framing all the Buddha's teachings is in terms of how to get rid of suffering and how to get happiness. It almost seems too simple, doesn't it? But analyze our lives. All we want is happiness. Analyze what we do, what drives every being, the ant, the dog, the monkey, the human. Every choice we make instinctively is based upon getting happy results. In other words, the results we want. Getting what we want is what we call happiness. Getting what we don't want is what we call suffering. Speaking really simply, and it's surprisingly easy, and it makes sense. So we spend our lives making choices on the basis of our belief that when I do that or think that or say that, it will bring the results that I want, which is called happiness. That's it, and Buddha's saying, hey guys, I found a plan and a method that will give you this. He has discovered his view. He has identified that the causes of happy feelings moment by moment, the causes of happiness, because happiness refers to happy feelings, happy experiences, are the fruit of past virtuous actions. He's identified that. Whereas Jesus, and this is an important discussion, there's a difference. I love Jesus. I was in love with Jesus. Actually, I was in love with God, really. You find that among Christians. You either like God or you like Jesus. It's very interesting, isn't it? I love God. I love the idea of God being everywhere. I like that a lot. I didn't mind Jesus, but I love God better. It's interesting, isn't it? I liked Our Lady. I love the saints. I love the saints. I wanted to be like them. My mother sent me to boarding school because I was so naughty. Because when I was about 12, they found me walking up and down the main street, Murrumbina Road, trying to seduce the greengrocer's son. I was like 12 and he was 16. I had my mother's high heels. I stole her pink lipstick. I had these fluorescent pink earrings that I got from Woolworths and my mother's high heels. She was so shocked. She sent me to boarding school, I tell you. I was trying to seduce Tony Chinchotta. I think he said King Cotta, but he was Italian. So it's probably Chin Cotta or something. He was 16, I'll never forget. My mother's so shocked, you can't believe it. She said to me, I'll never forget, she said, she's tall, I'm only 5 feet tall and she's 5'2", so she's quite small too, but I remember I was looking up at her and she said, you have the audacity. And I used to read books and I was into books. I'd never heard the word audacity. And I was thinking to myself, how do you spell that? O-R-D-A-C. I'm trying to work out the word, audacity, she said. You have the audacity. First time I heard that word. Anyway, she sent me to boarding school. Why am I telling that? Because when I got to boarding school, I turned into a saint. Mass 7 mornings a week. I learned the Mass in Latin. I was in love with God. And I tried to be like Saint Therese of Lisieux, who was like a little saint who became a nun when she was 14 and suffered for God. And I tried to suffer for God. I tried really hard, but I was not very brave. I tried to have only one blanket at night at boarding school in the winter, but I didn't survive it. And when I did my kneeling down, saying my prayers at my bed, I would have a hairbrush on my forehead, trying to hurt myself for God. But I was very cowardly. I couldn't I couldn't do what Saint Therese did. She suffered terribly with bliss. Didn't work. I wasn't very brave. Anyway, when I was little, I was in love with God. So what am I saying here? So the crucial difference. If you're a Muslim or a Christian, I'll say the Christian one, I always quote this, 1,000 times I quote this. My Jesuit priest friend, and I asked him, by definition, what is a sin? A naughty action. He said, by definition, it is doing what God said not to do. This is a huge point to understand. But that's our view of all morality. But somehow you're doing something that someone said you shouldn't do, which implies you get caught and which implies you get punished. That's the view we have. Now, that for the Buddha is actually the philosophical view of ego. It's a dualistic view we make up. He totally does not have that view. So for the Buddha, a negative action is an action that harms another. It's a natural law. So the Buddha's point is this. The first level of negative action is the heaviest of those that harm others. So any action that we would do, like I said, with the body and speech, that's based on the intention, I will do it, which in turn is underpinned by the motivation called anger, let's say, that whole process programs my mind, sows seeds in my mind that will ripen as my future tendency to be angry, as my future tendency to do that action, as my future experience to have that action done to me, not to mention realms of existence, subtler level types of rebirth. But we are the creators of our own experiences. Not that second. Seeds don't ripen in a second, they take time. So any moment of a suffering we have, the Buddha would say, the seeds of that were planted in my mind in the past when I did a negative action. And any moment of happiness that we experience is the fruit of virtuous actions. It's not punishment and reward because there's no view like that. It's logical. It's Buddha's observation. This is the process, that creates happiness and suffering. So we create our own happiness and we create our own suffering. I mean, we should be happy to hear this, but we freak out, you know, because we hear it as punishment. Nothing to do with punishment. When we get this, karma is a great idea. It means you're in charge. It means you're the boss. You know, that I find so powerful. That's the energy behind that view of karma. If we can get it like that, then we have some courage. Because right now, you analyze what we think suffering is. We think suffering comes from out there. Mummy caused it, daddy caused it, the mean boyfriend caused it, the things out there caused it. And our philosophy says that the causes of suffering are external. And that we're this innocent victim of bad things that happen. We didn't ask to get born. I don't deserve it. Look at the philosophy of ego. That's the philosophy of ego. You know, and then happiness, we just take it for granted. We greedily want, we don't care who caused it. We just give me more, please. So it's hubris, you know. The more we understand the mind and attachment and aversion, the more we understand these misconceptions. So that takes time for us to unpack it all. So the law of karma is that every second of every experience of every sentient being since beginningless time is the fruit of the actions of that sentient being, that we are our own creators. All the happiness is the fruit of our past actions. All the suffering is the fruit of our past actions. So the thing is, you see, in the way that the Lam Rim is presented, the very first level of like junior school level, the very first level of practice, which is where this is the context here, the first scope, the lowest scope of practices. Karma is taught purely in terms of how to stop future suffering. So it's all in terms of the negativity. It doesn't mention that karma causes happiness as well. You have to imply that. But for me, it's so important to present them at the same time. Because if we only think about karma in terms of negativity and suffering, which ironically we do, I've never yet had a person ever in the 45 years I've been trying to be a Buddhist, never yet anywhere on the planet in any country on earth, from the thousands of times that we've talked about this and I've had thousands of questions, I've never yet ever had a person who talks about why good things happen. It's only ever why do bad things happen, which is very, it says a lot about how we think. In other words, we're shocked when bad things happen and we don't know why, but we don't care why good things happen. Think about this. We just assume it's my right. Give me more, please. But how dare a bad thing happen? That's our view. That's why we never think of karma in terms of happiness. And this is shocking. That's why I find it so important to stress it continuously. All of our experiences are the fruit of our past actions. And if we can just for a moment start to think, you know, if we understood how much virtuous karma, living in vows, purifying every day, spiritual practice that we must have done in the past just to get this human body, just to be in the situation we are this second, to have the wish to practice the spiritual path, to have reasonable conditions, reasonable family, reasonable health, reasonable mind, reasonable money in the bank, it would blow our minds how much virtue we must have created. It would blow our minds, but we never think of it that way. We take it for granted. But as soon as a bad thing happens, panic attack. You know, it's very fascinating. We should look at that. It's fascinating. Because we hear karma as bad and punishment. It's, you know, it's kind of extraordinary. It's all of our experiences. And we can begin to understand this is why I talk about, the Buddha talks about the law of cause and effect being the seeds and fruits. All the time analogy is seeds and fruits. It's a great way to put our life. Everything we experience in life is our garden. Whatever's in your life, and that, you know, is the result of your past action. So let's look at those four. There are 4 ways that karma ripens. And if we can begin to understand these 4 and use this to interpret our lives, it will be an absolute eye-opener for us and will help us understand karma, not just have a vague notion as cause and effect, you know, oh, it's karma. It's like looking at a garden and going, oh, it's botany. Yeah, okay, now explain it to me, please. Oh, no, I can't do that. Well, what good is that? Doesn't help saying it's botany. You have to know how it works. So let's look at how karma works, just the principles. Analyze your life now. There's 4 ways you can divide the fruits of your past actions. One is the type of rebirth you have. So you clearly can see there are humans and animals and lions. There's a human and a lion, for example. So for the lion, particular karma, negative karma was triggered at the time of their death, and that caused that consciousness to run to a lion mummy's womb. So they get a lion body. Okay. We created the cause from past non-killing karmic seed was triggered at the time of our death, which we talked about, death. And that triggered, that caused our mind, programmed our mind to go to our present mother's human womb. Even that is no accident for the Buddha. No one gave us that birth. My mother didn't make me. She's lying there having sex with my dad. And you come barging in. Don't blame them. No, Buddha doesn't play a role. God doesn't play a role. No role like, there's no concept like that. It's not accidental. It's a fruit of my past actions, particularly non-killing, particularly non-harming, practice, no doubt, as Lama Zopa says, in the context of living in vows of non-killing. This rich, delicious, powerful karmic seed of non-killing, practiced in the context of living in vows, was triggered at the time of my death, a few weeks before my mummy and daddy hopped into bed. I was already programmed then by my past action to get that human womb. So even that, this is mind-blowing to think that we create even the cause to have this particular birth. That's a powerful concept for me. The usual view is someone else makes you. You're this innocent victim that someone plonks on this planet. I find that's a horrible idea. I'd much rather be in charge. Thank you very much. My past virtue, my past non-killing, practice in the context of keeping vows of non-killing is the main cause of my mind running like a magnet to my mother's fallopian tube. And then that consciousness joining my mother's egg and my father's sperm. I created that. This is a blissful view. I love that view. Much better than someone else creating me. I find it marvelous. First one. First way your karma ripens, the type of body you get. So in our case, human. Amazing. First one. Second, we can see on this planet, you've got your Mother Teresa's and your Hitlers and everybody in between, isn't it? They both got human bodies. So the one track of karma, they both got a human body. They both had the non-killing karmic seed triggered at the time of their past death that caused them each in their case to go to whatever she was, a Bulgarian. What was Mother Teresa? Bulgarian or Romania or something? What was she? Do you remember? No? One of those, I thought. Eastern European somewhere.
She was Albanian.
Thank you, Albanian. There you go. Someone telling me, thank you, Albanian. Her Albanian mummy sitting in bed with her Albanian daddy, no doubt. And then, you know, her mind from the past and of non-killing karmic seed was triggered. She could have been anybody before. And that ran like a magnet to her Albanian mummy's fallopian tube. And then she got a human body. Well, Hitler's the same. His non-killing virtuous karma was triggered because we've all got millions of karmic seeds. And at the time of his past death, that consciousness found its way to Hitler's Austrian mummy's human womb with Hitler's probably Austrian daddy. He caused it. That's just a human body. Mother Teresa got one, Hitler got one. Now let's look at the differences. The next way the karma ripens is the mind within that body, the tendencies. The tendencies similar to the cause, they can call it. This is the second way our karma ripens. So clearly it's a bunch of habits. Mother Teresa soon, obviously you can see from her behavior that she had some decent qualities in her mind, didn't she? Wish to harm, wish to benefit others, wish to be kind, faith in God, blah, 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 religious, kind, compassionate. Isn't it? Look at Mr. Hitler. Look what he demonstrated. You can tell by their behavior what their mind was like. It's pretty clear. They were his tendencies. So there wasn't a human body, which is the fruit of virtue, but you've got lots of other tendencies. I mean, look at the human world. Just because we've got human bodies doesn't mean we have good tendencies. Lots of humans kill, lie, steal, terrorize, rape, murder. Look at them. So we've got tendencies. And we can all see in normal people in between the spectrum of Mother Teresa and Hitler, we've got some positive tendencies and some negative ones. Some people have more negative, some people have more positive. They are our tendencies. They are our habits from our past practice. We weren't given them. This is the weirdest idea for the Buddha, I have to tell you. You don't get your anger and jealousy. This is the shocking part. The materialist philosophical view is that your mummy gives you anger. Your mummy gives you love. Your mummy gives you being good at football or music. No, she doesn't. This is a crucial point to get. First, intellectually, to get it clear. We bring our own tendencies with us. We have billions of tendencies, just a few ripened in Hitler's mind. And we can see pretty much from his behavior. Quite a few were quite negative, weren't they? We can see from Mother Teresa's behavior, quite a few were quite positive. We can see that. Everybody the same. The lion the same. So clearly for the lion, you know, you get tendencies that suit a lion's behavior, don't you? The lion doesn't go around stroking people with kindness and cutting its nails so it doesn't hurt when it, you know, doesn't do that. It's got strong aggression and strong anger and strong attachment and strong tendency to kill. Look at a lion. So those tendencies ripen in the body that suits those tendencies. I mean, and when I had long red nails once, try go around ripping the guts out of buffaloes for breakfast with your long red nails. It doesn't work. They're too sensitive. But lions have got ready-made claws, you know, that can rip the guts out of buffaloes for breakfast. Those are tendencies in that lion's womb. That could have been a human being in the past. But due to their negative karma, a negative seed was triggered, and then all their negative tendencies that suited the lion's life ripened in that person's mind. And they got born as a lion with lion tendencies. One is the lion's body, and one is the tendencies. One is the human body, and one is the tendencies. So we can see in humans, this is the tragedy. We get a human body, which is the fruit of virtue, but lots of negative tendencies also ripen in the human mind. Look at Hitler as the example, or lots of other humans. I mean, for example, most humans kill. This is a tragedy. Most humans kill. Even most religions say it's okay to kill. I'm not being critical, I'm just making the facts. So most humans kill. If you don't think it's normal to kill humans, you're going to kill rats and roaches and, you know, and ants and mosquitoes. All kinds of animals. Humans think it's normal to kill, you know. In fact, it's shocking to think that, you know, there's a recommendation from the Buddha that you don't kill anything. It's quite shocking to us. Most humans kill. So tendencies, the second way our karma ripens is the tendencies, if you like. A tendency by definition means a habit, doesn't it? If you look, I've looked at you playing music. Why are you good at music, Rebirth? Well, guess what, dear? I did practice it. You see a person being angry, you know, they said, you know, why are you angry, Rebirth? Oh, it's not my fault. Well, it's just a tendency. We blame everybody else, isn't it? But it's a tendency. It's a tendency in your mind. You got born with a tendency. Your father doesn't cause it. Your mother doesn't cause it. She can punch you in the nose. But if you don't have a tendency to be angry, you won't get angry. No way. That's the Buddha's view. You bring your own tendencies with you. To be good at music, to be good at football, to be good at anger, to be good at kindness, whatever it is. That's why we fundamentally have to know our mind well. Look into our tendencies and look at the ones that are negative and try to get rid of them because they cause you suffering, and look at the ones that are positive and try to grow them because they cause you happiness. Then we can use them to be of benefit to others, you know. So first way karma ripens is the type of body you get. Second, in our case, human. We won the lottery. It's like we won. We didn't really win the lottery. It's logic. But it's a miracle to have a human body. Amazing. Second, our tendencies in this human body, in the mind itself. There's past karma as well. All our past. They're our tendencies. This is crystal clear for the Buddha. They do not come from mummy and daddy. They do not come from the outside person. They do not come from a creator. No concept like that. They are my tendencies. You come fully programmed at the first second of conception as a lion or as a human or whatever, you know, with all your tendencies. The third way our past karma ripens is called experiences similar to the cause. This first one, the second one is intentions or tendencies similar to the cause, your habits. The third one is experiences similar to the cause. So look at this. We are social beings, aren't we? We don't exist in isolation. We know since we're born, we have mummies and daddies and siblings and aunties and uncles and grandpas and dogs and cats and cockroaches. We live in relation to others. We're very social beings. So experiences similar to the cause is how you are seen and treated by others. Pretty much That's it, It's very powerful. So one is your own tendencies, the intentions or tendencies or habits similar to the past habit of having done them. 1. 2 is how you're seen and treated by others. Look at us, So look at your life. From the second you were born up to now, you can divide your experiences at the hands of others into precisely 2 categories. The people who are nice to you and the people who are mean to you. It's really not complicated. So their experiences similar to the cause. Hear the words. So if a person tells you the truth, don't just think that's accidental. That's because you've spoken the truth in the past, so they will tell you the truth. Now, what another person, let's say, so 1, you've got a tendency to be truthful. That's your own tendency. But let's say 2, someone never believes your words. We are so shocked by this, but I'm telling the truth. Why don't they believe me? We can see this is incredible suffering. People at work accuse you of saying something you didn't do. That's the experience similar to the cause of your past lying. That it ripens as someone not believing you, even though you now have a tendency to speak the truth and are speaking the truth. This is why we suffer so badly in our life. You think, I'm a kind person, I'm a loving person, I'm generous, I don't steal, I don't lie, and yet I get stolen from and lied to and harmed and murdered and raped and killed. This is where we go mad in our culture. Why is this happening to me? We will say. Of course, all the good things will happen. We don't say, why are they happening to me? We don't care. Give me more. I deserve it. No, nothing to do with that. It's past karma. Experiences similar to the cause. Experiences similar to the cause. Whose cause? Your cause. So these 2 tracks, one is your own tendencies and one is how you're seen and treated by others. It's the best way to put it. When we get this, we will have an explanation for why things happen to us, good and bad. And in a sense, they've got nothing to do with what's inside here. They're 2 separate tracks of karma. You could have a tendency to lie, but people will believe you. I always use the example of Mr. Trump. Millions of Americans adore the ground the man walks on. They believe every word he says. And yet there was the Washington Post. They tracked every lie, all his Pinocchios. They give him 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Pinocchios. They tracked thousands of lies of Mr. Trump. But there are fans of Mr. Trump who believe every word he said. We know that. Well, you could say he's got the karma with those millions of people from his telling the truth to them in countless lives, that even when he's lying, they believe him. And even a person's speaking the truth, but they don't believe you. When we get these 2, because we're so confused by this, we assume because I'm a nice person, people must think I'm a nice person. No, we can tell. We know it's not true. It's so painful for us. This is a major way we suffer. When people are mean to us and harmful, but I don't deserve it. And you're right, in this life, you don't deserve it. It's really true, but we're not factoring in past lives. That's the trouble, This is the Buddha's view. It's a long-term thing. This is why good things happen to bad people, and this is why bad things happen to good people. I remember giving a talk in Miami years ago, and there was me, a Lutheran, a Catholic, and a rabbi. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? but the fact is, it was like, the topic was, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, I have to say, I didn't understand the Lutheran or the Catholic. I didn't understand. But when I gave my talk about karma, the rabbi clapped. He said, we have the same view. He was a Kabbalah rabbi. All the Jews in the audience were gobsmacked. They hadn't heard such a thing. But he cracked jokes about it, he said. And they have a saying, because they have karma, the view of karma and reincarnation, you see. The Kabbalah Jews. So he said, we have a saying, every time something bad happens, you go, great, 1 less debt to repay. That's a wonderful view. So we have 1, the type of rebirth. 2, your tendencies in that mind, the kind of mind you've got, the tendencies you have, your personality traits, all of them. Good at music, good at football, good at killing, good at lying, whatever it might be. They're your tendencies, your habits. You bring them with you. You come into this life programmed at the first second of conception with these tendencies. They do not come from your mother and father. They do not come from a creator. This is a major, major difference, you know. And then 3, the third way your karma ripens is how you are seen and treated by others. Every tiny good thing that happens. You walk into a shop, someone smiles at you. Don't take it for granted. It's the fruit of your past virtue. Every time someone believes your word, it's the fruit of your past non-lying. Every time someone gives you something, the fruit of your past generosity. Every time, you know, you go to the bank and someone believes you and gives you credit, the result of your past good reputation and the past result of your past generosity. Everything that happens is not an accident. It's the fruit of your past virtue. Every bad thing that happens, the fruit of your past non-virtue. It's a natural law for Buddha. It's a natural law. No one runs it. It's not punishment. It's not reward. It's natural law. Pretty powerful concept, I tell you. The 4th way your karma ripens, we can see. We don't just float in the sky. We all have environments, don't we? We live in a place with a sky and an earth. And all these realms of existence that Buddha talks about all have some type of environment, you know. There's logic to all this, especially when I say the Vajrayana model of the universe, when the physical world is made of the 4 elements. They talk about this. So the physical world is the 4 elements, basically, and the configuration of those 4 elements. Think of it this way: the configuration of the outside world, whether it's harmful or helpful to you, even that is the fruit of your past karma. Everything is our karmic appearance, Lama Zopa says. Everything, the way that weather is, the food, the people, how they see you and treat you, your own mind and your own physical body. 4 ways that karma ripens. We are the boss of all of this. We are the creator of all of this. It's a pretty intense, tasty, delicious view, I think. Obviously, I like it. I'm trying to live according to it, put my money where my mouth is. So the first is called the fully ripened result, the type of rebirth. The second is called your tendencies or intentions or habits, similar to the cause of your having done them before. The third is your experiences, similar to the cause, how you're seen and treated by others in this world we live in. And the fourth is called environmental karma, the very way the physical world impacts upon you. So give one example of an action of non-killing, the habit of non-killing practiced in the context of living in a vow of non-killing, as we've talked, and we're going to go into that, especially here with the karmic module. Living in vows is stupendous. Rinpoche says there's no way in the world the life that we have got now, of all the good things that are happening, it would be impossible without our having lived in vows of good ethics in the past. Just being good is not enough, he said. We'll go into all this. So non-killing, for example, as a fully ripened result, that would ripen as a human birth. Second, non-killing would ripen as a tendency to wake up in this life with no thought to kill, which is pretty rare on this planet. You think about it, look at the world. The third way non-killing would ripen is you won't get killed and you won't die young. Fourth way non-killing ripens environmentally is that the physical world nourishes you. The air, the water, the food nourishes you, doesn't harm you. You're fat and healthy, eat what you like and you'll be healthy, you know. Look at the world. Look at the world now. So some of us have got a human body, right? And some have a tendency to kill. Some have a human body and have a tendency to not kill. Some have a human body and will have an experience of getting killed or dying young. Look at the numbers. When you realize that your human birth starts at conception, I don't think we do this kind of surveys. You look, I think I wouldn't be surprised that the number of human beings who start at conception, who win the lottery basically and run to a human mother's womb, I bet the number of humans who die in the womb even before they're born is more than those who get born. I wouldn't be surprised. Miscarriages and abortions, basically. They got a human body. I aborted a baby. I'll use the example when I was 23. That means a sentient being had strong karmic history with me, because karma's very personal, ran like a magnet to my fallopian tube when I was in bed with that boy, and the egg and sperm came together. She created the cause, or he, whoever it was. And I always tell this story, and many women tell me this too. Not trying to be too personal, but it's very interesting. I knew that second I was pregnant. I knew that second when I was with that boy. That second I knew, I said, oh no, I said to myself, I'm pregnant. A friend of mine, her daughter was living in the house with her husband while they were building their new house. And the daughter came down for breakfast and said, oh, Mum, I'm pregnant. And the mother said, oh, when did you know? 40 minutes ago. Do you understand? Many women, have any of you women had that experience? That you knew you were pregnant that second? Yes, it's very common. That's exactly the Buddhist view. That's when the consciousness comes. It's very interesting that for me, that experience. I'll never forget it. I was 23. Vivid, crystal clear. I didn't think about those things then, not at all. So that sentient being who came to my womb, one had the first karma due to non-killing to get a human body. She won the lottery, or he, whoever it was. I never found out if it was male or female. Then they had the third karma, though. They had the third karma to get killed and to die young. They died before they were even born. That's their past killing karma ripening as an experience similar to the cause. So that either you die young, you die when you're a fetus. I might have had a miscarriage. She didn't have a karma to get killed. But in this case, I also killed them, I had the abortion. Well, I got the doctors to do it for me, didn't I? So that being in my womb had the karma to get killed, because I must have killed them before. That's how karma works. And to die young, to die as a fetus. Must be pretty many, a number of those, I'd say. That's experience similar to the cause of past killing. Then the babies who die, and the 1-year-olds who die, and the children who die, and the 16-year-olds who die, and the healthy people who die. People who are healthy drop dead. No one knows why. No medical cause, isn't it? We know that. Karma runs out. It's like a petrol tank of past non-killing. When your non-killing petrol tank runs out, you will drop dead. That's called the third karma of the result of killing. If you're still alive, it's because your petrol tank of non-killing hasn't ripened, hasn't run out yet. Pretty tasty, And we created that. That's why living in vows of non-killing is the most powerful one. You can't get, it's just not enough just to be good. You've got to have vows of non-killing, which we'll go into, we'll describe. So the first result of non-killing is you get a human body. The second result of non-killing is you wake up with no tendency to kill, or at some point in your life, you'll decide not to kill. Like us as Buddhists, you decide not to kill. 3, the result of non-killing is you won't get killed and you will not die young. 4th, the result of non-killing environmentally is that the food, the water, the physical world itself, the air nourishes you, doesn't harm you. Look at the opposite. Look at the humans who've got a human body, non-killing karma ripen. 2, their tendency to kill. This is the tragedy. It's just normal. You kill the ants, you kill the cockroaches, you kill the rats, you kill the humans, It's considered normal. The tendency to kill. 3, you get killed or you die young. 4, the physical world harms you. You get sick, you're weak, you get cancer, food harms you, the physical world. And look at the pandemic. The whole world, millions of us collectively are experiencing the collective karma of our own individual past killing. That we're all collectively experiencing the collective results. And environmental karma takes the longest to ripen, could be thousands of lifetimes. The whole world, look at it, we're experiencing different results. So those who die from COVID and die young, that's the fruit of past killing. But some people don't die from it, they just get sick. And the sickness is also the environmental result of past killing. The environmental result of past killing is you get sick. And if you die, that's the extra one, of past killing. That's the experience similar to the cause. So look at it collectively. So in the environment for us these days is our mummy and our sister and our beloveds and our friends and our neighbors. We can't kiss each other anymore. We can't touch each other. We'll die. So the physical world harming you includes other human beings, Look at the collective karma of the sickness. And it's so powerful. We get vaccines and then the Delta comes along. Get more vaccines and now the Omicron comes along. Australia had conquered, New Zealand and Australia had conquered COVID. And suddenly now Australia is the worst of the world in Omicron, all of a sudden. So when the karma is that strong, no matter how many antidotes, no matter how many vaccines, karma is stronger than any of it. It's very powerful. It's very interesting. So the Buddha's view is always the first cause of anything, any being ever experiences, ever thinks, ever does, and ever says. The first cause is past karma. And the next cause is the condition, you know. So kissing your mother for one person is why they get COVID, but that's only the secondary cause. The first cause is that person's past killing karma, that they get sick. You know, a person who's got no killing karma can kiss their mother 27 times and never get COVID. That's the point about karma. So we've got to think about this because we're used to only thinking of the external condition as being the main cause for everything, for our happiness and our suffering. So it takes a while to factor this in, you know, because it's a very different view. The physical world plays a role, but it's a secondary role. This is the point in Buddhism. Of course, it plays a role, but it's secondary. The first one, karma, the action you did in the past that sowed a seed in your mind that is now triggered by that external event of kissing your mum. Now you get COVID. And if you haven't got the karma to die, I always tell the story. I met this Tibetan nun, young Tibetan nun in Kathmandu, and I had to have an operation in Kathmandu. I had a polyp. Who cares about my polyp, what I'm telling you? I had a polyp back here. I had to cut it out, you know. So I was in Kathmandu, I had the operation, and I went, and there's this next door was this nun, and my friends came and introduced me to her. She was 26. She'd been in hospital for like 9 months. She broke every body in her body. Listen to this. She was in a helicopter in the winter in the forest in Kathmandu with 10 other people. The helicopter crashed. Everybody was smashed to smithereens. She fell into a tree and fell on the ground. She was conscious. I looked up in the tree and I saw my shemdup. This is your shemdup. She reached her hand out and there was her phone. There was a line, it was intact, and she called her daddy and they saved her. She didn't have the karma to die. You have to, that's the logic for Buddhism. It's not accidental. It's not good luck, you know. She didn't have the karma to die. She said, I was on the ground. Every bone in her body was broken. She had a tights on. Luckily, it was cold. She had tights on, luckily. I saw my shemmed up in the tree, she said. I kept visualizing this tree kind of holding her when she fell, you know, from the helicopter. She fell into the tree and then she fell on the ground. And then there was her phone. Astonishing, isn't it? And she picked it up and rang her father. 10 hours later, they still took 10 hours to find her. But that's what we call a miracle, isn't it? It wasn't a miracle. She didn't have the karma to die yet. I find that marvelous, that story. She took like 9 months to get healed because she broke every little bone in her poor little body, you know. Okay, so I think it's time for questions. I've talked non-stop for 1 hour. Questions, come on, you guys.
See any questions?
Yes, yes. What's your name, darling?
I'm gonna ask.
What's your name, sweetheart?
Can I keep anonymous?
Oh, of course it can be anonymous. Absolutely. Anonymous wants to ask me a question. I'm not being sarcastic. Speak to me, darling. Talk to me. Talk to me.
It's very hard to wrap around the concept of 4 karmas. How could you explain a person who was grown and born out in extreme poverty?
I can't quite hear you, sweetheart. I'd love to hear you. Can you just speak a little bit louder? I'm so sorry.
So how could you use karma to explain a person's life, in current life, that a person is born in extreme poverty?
That's right.
Was sexually abused?
Yes.
Was physically abused?
That's right.
And had many near deaths.
That's right. Exactly. The world is full of terrible suffering. I agree, darling.
Yet
yes.
Survived.
Yes.
And they yet went to top universities.
And they what, darling? And they what? The last part I didn't hear.
And they went to top universities.
And then what?
Top universities. Education.
Yes.
Education.
Yes.
And then miraculously end up in a beautiful country.
That's right, exactly.
How do you explain the karma for a child who had gone through so
exactly, I understand.
Suffering, but yet life take a different turns.
Yes.
And then at a later stage, they have to go through face the past trauma.
They have to do through what?
Emotions.
Yes, exactly. So based on what you've heard me say, could you explain it yourself? Based on what I've given you the technology of karma. If you remember what I said, can you explain it? Based on what you've heard me say, I try to explain it very clearly.
I can explain, okay, maybe the past non-healing.
Maybe the past what, darling?
Non-healings,
yes.
Kindness brought her to the life. But yeah, there are many other bad things.
That's right, that happened to them. Yes, yes, yes.
and made her have all those sexual abuse.
That's right,
physical
exactly.
abuse,
I understand,
and
darling. So that's right. So from what I've said, can you hear the answer yourself? Just technically, what based on what I've said, what do you think? What I've said, can you give the answer yourself? No?
I cannot understand how the
Habits, so you don't understand how the concept of habit. You can't hear that. So as I explained to you this, okay, can I give you another example? Do you know some people who've had no sexual abuse? You know some people who've had no sexual abuse. Do you know some people who've got wonderful parents and money in the bank and beautiful bodies and good qualities and wonderful things happens to them?
Yes.
Right. The question also applies to that. What is the cause of that? It's exactly the same question. Exactly the same question. In other words, you're asking, why do bad things happen? And I'm also asking, why do good things happen? Botany refers to flowers and weeds. It's a natural law. So the answer, which of course we don't like, is because they've done negative things in the past. But why do good things happen to you? Why have you got loving parents and a good education and wonderful qualities? Because you've done those things before. So whatever happens to us that's called happiness, as tendencies and as experiences, we created the cause. Whatever happens to us that has bad tendencies and bad things happening to us, we created the cause. It's not accidental, it's not random, it's not punishment, and it's not reward. It's a natural law, sweetheart. That's the Buddha's view.
But if the bad
I can't hear you, darling. I really want to.
sorry. In the past, if
Yeah.
the bad actions were so bad,
Yes.
there's so many things happen.
Yeah.
Why the person survived?
Why?
the person
Because they've got the good
survived?
qualities to survive. Some people get cancer because of past killing, and then they have a good doctor and are healed because of past non-killing. We have multitudes of karmic seeds, multitudes of things. It's so subtle. There are millions of karmic seeds. So some people have incredible, I mean, I know I've worked with people in prison for 25 years. And I mean, there's one woman I always quote who was accused in the 70s of murdering 2 policemen with her husband. They were put on death row. Husband was executed. His brains burst into flames. She lost her children. Her parents were killed. She was accused of murder. She was living in a cell for 17 years. Unbelievable suffering, like you go mad. People go mad. Many people I know in prison. She had an incredibly powerful mind. She changed herself. She worked on her own mind. She practiced every day. She wasn't a Buddhist. She became a happy, wise, fulfilled person. She was able to bear it, able to stitch. And we know so many people who have unbelievable suffering on this planet, who have incredibly strong tendencies, who have very strong morality, very strong goodness, very big hearts, who utilize that to transform their experiences. Some people go completely mad and kill themselves because their suffering is unbearable. So there's so many factors involved in every individual person, isn't there? Aren't there? Can you see that?
How could the force cancel each other?
What, sweetheart?
The forces, the different factors, how can they not just even them out?
Well, that's a nice theory, but it doesn't work like that. It's a nice theory, darling. It doesn't work like that. Keep talking. It's really interesting to hear you. So mainly you're struggling with the concept of karma. It seems like too ridiculous or too unfair or something, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Not understanding comes translation into
The what, darling?
current life.
You what?
How the in current life, your will and your mind plays another role.
Absolutely, it plays a massive. I mean, my friend in prison, Sunny, who she was in her cell for years. I mean, she was treated like a monster. She was accused of killing policemen, which is the worst crime on the planet in America. She had this incredibly powerful mind and strong mind and will. She said, I knew. She said, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything, but I knew I had the choice. She worked on her mind. She worked on herself. She changed her mind. She stopped being angry. She stopped going crazy, and she became a wise, compassionate human being, worked on her freedom, never stopped for 17 years and got her freedom eventually. So she had a powerful, so to have suffering and have a powerful mind and learn to withstand that suffering, that's a pretty rare combination, because we can see mostly we go crazy and get destroyed by the suffering that happens to us, isn't it? You can see that on the planet, you know. So how marvelous. I mean, we all know in this room, might not say we've been sexually abused, but some of us have been. Some of us have had husbands cheat on us. Some of us have had cancer. Some of us have had incredible suffering. But so that's what I'm saying. One is the type of karma is the experiences you have. And the other is your mind and what you use and work with internally. And the combination of this woman in prison had very powerful qualities: intelligence, emotional intelligence, clarity, will, determination. She was able to bear this pain. I remember at the same time hearing about this woman. She's my friend now. She's out of prison. I heard about another guy who was also in prison, also accused of murder. He went completely crazy. He didn't have the ability internally to bear the suffering. We can see this on the planet. Look at the human suffering. It's unbearable. So how fortunate when we do have suffering that we've got the will and the ability to transform it and use it. This is really powerful practice, isn't it? Some people have that. We can all have got the potential though. What do you think? Useful thoughts?
It complements my many scientific readings.
Yes.
I have read many neuroscience books.
Yes. Yes.
The reptilian brain, limbic system, survival brain, and your thinking
Yes.
brain.
Mm-hmm.
How the trauma have played a system on your nervous systems.
Yes.
And how it triggers your thoughts.
Yes.
But I couldn't understand why certain things happened and what happened, and why certain mind have such a marvelous recovery.
No, exactly. I understand that. No, I understand exactly. Well, see, all I'm doing is giving the technological basic ideas of karma, that we come into this life, one with certain tendencies. So I could say that Sunny, this woman, had very strong, virtuous, ethical tendencies. She had patience, she had humility, she had the power of her own mind, that she was able to work with this intense suffering. Other people do not have it. So there's two separate tracks of karma. One is your own tendencies, and two is the experiences you have. So we can see a person can be born into a beautiful mummy, a beautiful daddy, money in the bank, good education, but they're neurotic and deluded and totally suffering. Another person can have strong qualities, have a terrible mother and father, but come out of it wisely. So it's just two separate tracks. One is the stuff that happens to you, and one is your own resources, your own inner emotional resources. And the Buddha's view is it's not just random. We come with these ourselves, or we have the potential. And this is really what practice is, because we all know bad things happen to us. So we need to develop the inner resources to be able to work with what life brings us. And this is very much the Buddhist approach, that we've all got this marvelous potential to develop patience and humility and inner strength and confidence that can help us withstand the nightmare of the difficulties of life sometimes, Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I have a follow-up question. I think you might have answered.
Yes, go on.
So if we take the lion again, and yes, the body, the tendency, the environment.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So what's next for the lion?
Only misery. I mean, if every single second of what we think and do and say sows seeds in our mind, and there you are with this is the tragedy, with a tendency to kill and be aggressive. And look at the mummy lion; she's very good at it.
Yes.
That can only create more suffering, infinite more suffering.
Yes.
Only create more suffering.
So there's no next virtuous. I was thinking the example you gave about Sonny, I think.
About what?
So the example you gave earlier, the person in jail.
Oh yes, Sunny, my friend.
So she would have a tendency to kill, but at the same time, you are saying she had a virtuous tendency, which was about
her past killing ripened as being accused of killing, but she had no tendency in her mind to kill this time. She had only had powerful virtuous tendencies in this life. But her past negative karma ripened as being accused of something she didn't do. But she had this inner strength and clarity that enabled her to deal with that pain.
Okay, so if the four elements, the example of the lion, then essentially your mind cannot travel to a next level of.
No, for sure. I mean, okay. If we take the Buddhist view that our consciousness goes back and back and back, we have to take that view here in this hypothesis, that consciousness just says, you don't just begin in your mother's womb, that the lion comes into that life. She's been a human countless times. She's done other countless things. everything we think and do and say doesn't go astray. Everything gets stored in our mind as karmic imprints. If we've had countless past lives, there are billions of karmic imprints. So she's been a human in the past. She's done virtuous things in the past. She's been a meditator in the past. They're all there waiting, latent. So as a lion, she creates heavy, more negativity. But like a miracle at one point, her negative karma will run out. She'll get a decent human life. And if she's fortunate, she'll use that to get rid of the rubbish, which is what we've got right now. And she'll be able to get a positive one. It's tough, you know, best of stuff.
So the karmic seeds are multiple. Even if we just take tendencies.
Yeah, of course, multiple. A
backwards,
tiny amount just ripen in this life. We've got billions of
and
karmic
at
seeds.
one point in time, it might be more let's say the less virtuous ones, and this is why, you know, you have certain tendency that manifests in your current body, but it doesn't mean that the past more virtuous.
Oh, they're all sitting there waiting.
tendencies,
They're just not ripening yet.
and they can always come back.
But they can't not come back. That's why, as we're going to discuss over the next weeks, one of the major practices is the purification practice. One of the major practices we do every day is this process of purifying our negative karmic seeds, like pulling out the weeds, pulling out the seeds before they ripen as suffering. That's a major, and that's why living in vows and purification are the two major practices on the basis of this law of karma, to get ahead of the game, you know.
I understand if you're human. If you remember, I asked you a question last week because I was interested to understand the trend, a whole bit of hope and positive message. So I was thinking, you know, where things go, because it seems it can only get worse and worse.
What?
So if you're a human being.
Sorry, what? Sorry, again. What do you mean it can only get worse and worse?
Last week I asked you the question. If we look now at karma for all human, for all sentients.
Oh, you mean you're talking about the whole planet getting worse
the
and
whole
worse?
planet, right?
Yeah, I know,
And I
yeah.
asked you the question.
Yeah.
Can we be optimistic? You know, are things going in the right direction in terms of, you know, moving more towards virtuous type of behavior?
Right.
Or do we see the opposite?
Well, I mean, you got to just look at the evidence. What's the evidence on this human planet?
Yes, exactly. That's what
Isn't it?
we concluded. Now, if you're human, you say you can work on it.
That's if we're fortunate.
If you're,
Most humans don't.
but if you're a lion, you can't really.
That's right. Exactly. You can't. That's a tragedy. That's why you don't want to be born a lion. So avoid it, please. That's the point. Don't create the cause to be a lion. We're having a saying in Australia about cricket. If you're on a good wicket, stick to it. A wicket, you know, is the ground where you play the cricket. It's a really good wicket. They call it, I don't know, I haven't played cricket. Did you play cricket, Tom? You're on a good wicket, stick to it. You've got a good conditions, use them, baby. Don't waste them, you know. Pretty powerful, isn't it? What else, people? Very good points. Thank you. Yes, Sandra.
Some really high-rise lamas, they get sick.
Forgive me, darling. Start again.
Some lamas, some real life,
Practitioners, yeah.
like Rinpoche.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Lama Yeshe, he had a
Exactly.
heart
Yes.
disease,
Yes.
or Lama Sopar, he had a stroke.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeshe Lama Kontrok,
Yes,
he had cancer.
exactly.
But this is not karma, right?
No, it's with those. No, okay. There's two things. As you progress more and more, and you become more and more spiritually developed, you get more and more in control of this process. And if you're on the bodhisattva path, you might not be fully developed. You still can experience the fruits of karma, but you'll do it with a very happy mind, and it'll help you clean up your act. But sometimes, very often, the more advanced you get, you can take on suffering happily as an example to others, but it's not. And eventually, when you're a Buddha, it's not possible to have negative stuff. So look at Dalai Lama. He's said to be a Buddha, but he look at the suffering he supposedly experienced as a Tibetan, but that's just play acting. It's not possible to have suffering. He got born as a Tibetan to support the Tibetans and went through their experiences with them, but it's not the fruit of his karma at all. It's finished. That's finished utterly, completely. Yeah. Yeah. Someone else, please. Any more questions? Anybody on the? We've got Rosalind, and we have Terry, and we have Catherine. Come on, and we have Michelle. Come on, then start up here, Rosalind. Ros, you start, sweetheart. Hang on a second.
Rubina, thank you. Can I ask you what determines which tendencies?
Yeah.
We must have, so many tendencies.
Right, exactly.
What determines which ones?
Well, it's like
Really
seeds.
does.
You know? I mean, it's like seeds. Which seed will ripen first? You have to think the strongest one, the one that was planted most recently. Or, I mean, it's a natural law, so you've got to learn it. It's a natural law. So whatever, the same with, that's why the seeds is a good example. You're asking the question, which seed will ripen first? Well, you have to learn botany, and you'll find out, won't you?
But
Do you understand?
would it be the strongest seed, as you say, or the
For
most recent
example,
seed,
Of
or?
course, for the strongest tendency, or the one that you planted most recently, or I mean, it's sort of fairly logical in that sense. But it's not logical if you don't know the law. When you learn it, then you can understand it. As long as the key thing is, like with botany, even if you don't know a word of botany, if you understand it's a natural law, then you know that there's logic to it. So you have to learn the logic, basically, isn't it? You see my point?
Yes.
But certainly strong ones will have a more impact than, I mean, if you've got in today, just in your daily life, if you have a tendency to be angry stronger than patience, well, guess what? It's pretty evident what will happen first, isn't it? That's why we're trying to change our tendencies. We're trying to strengthen the positive habits and weaken the negative ones. That's daily practice. You see?
So,
Same with imprints.
so a tendency, say, from many, many, many lifetimes ago, not recent, is less likely to be triggered than one.
No, that's not true. Also, that's not true. That's not true either. That's not true either. The seed that's triggered that'll cause your next life could have been planted 1 million lifetimes ago.
Right.
I mean, I don't know all the answers, but for me, it's encouraging to think it's a natural law. So there has to be logic to it. So it's my job to learn the logic.
Okay.
Do you understand my point? Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Terry, sweetheart.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
Is there time to ask for two questions, or should I ask only one?
That's up to you, sweetheart. You talk to me. Come on.
Okay, let's see. If somebody throws their own karmic burden that they kind of...
Sorry, darling, it's very hard to hear in the speaker here. Can you speak very clearly, please?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but speak clearly.
Okay. If somebody does refuse to carry their karmic burden and
I don't know what it means, refuse. You can't refuse to carry. What do you mean, sweetheart? Say it another way.
Okay, I take a friend and I force the friend to carry my karmic burden for me.
They can't do that. That's not a possibility, darling. No one can carry it's sort of like saying you've got the karma to play piano and you force someone else to play piano for you. It's not possible. It's your tendency. No one can carry your burden for you, darling. It's an impossibility.
And if I get affected by really negative karma that I cannot bear, that it's really, really over my limit, how can I protect myself from the effect of somebody else?
Of course, you stay out of the way of people who are difficult for you. You protect yourself. If you're an alcoholic, you have to keep away from other alcoholics, don't you? It's sensible. If you've got a tendency to be angry, you need to keep away from people who make you angry. You've got to protect yourself, sweetheart. You've got to protect yourself by knowing what is good for you and what is bad for you. Often we don't know that. That's why we get into trouble in our relationships. We're foolish. Do you hear me?
I hear you. I hear
Good,
you.
darling. Be brave. Make decisions.
Okay.
Even if people criticize you, it doesn't matter. You must know what is good for you.
Fine.
Yes, Catherine. Speak to me.
Hello, Venerable.
Oh, darling.
If I understand it correctly, and I don't know if I do, for instance, 22 years ago, I had my wonderful daughter, so I had a huge, really good karmic seed. Afterwards, I had multiple miscarriages, so not good karmic seeds. So I have done something that wasn't good in a previous life.
Well, no, it just meant that you wanted a baby, and the baby that came to your womb, their karma was to last only enough for them to be in your womb, and their karma ran out. So the part you play in that is the sadness of losing that baby. You didn't cause that. I mean, that was your particular suffering. Theirs was their past killing karma caused them to die young in the womb, and yours was because you wanted the baby and then you suffered the loss of not having the baby. That's all.
Okay, then what I don't understand how works is when I finally found somewhere where I could practice Buddhism, the first thing, quite a big leap, was an invitation to do nunya. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly.
That's fine, darling. Sure. Yeah, then go on.
And I was explained that by doing this, we cleared some of our karma.
Darling, all that means is, you purify. Of course, everything you do, your practices, if you're trying to practice, I use the analogy, you're either pulling out the weeds or you're growing the flowers. So purification means everything you do is to help you stop killing, stop stealing, and stop lying, etc., etc. And you purify those tendencies in your mind by doing virtuous things. It's very psychologically logical.
So not previous karma, but...
What, sweetheart?
Because I thought it meant purifying previous
Well, of
karma.
course,
and
what else is there but previous karma? Of course, you're purifying previous karma, sweetheart. There are billions of karmic seeds. Listen, even every time you intentionally not kill, you're putting atomic bombs under the tendency to kill. You're purifying your mind. You're training your mind to go in a positive direction. That's called purification, sweetheart. It's not cosmic. Of course, you're purifying. Every time you do a virtuous action, every time you practice, every time you live in vows, you're purifying negative tendencies from the past. Of course you are.
But wouldn't I still have done something negative in the past, and that would still be negative?
You planted weeds in the past. Yes, so what? Yes. That's why you got to pull them out, petal.
Yeah, makes sense. I understand now.
Good, darling.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Yes, hello.
Hello, sweetheart.
I was thinking about the lower realms, like the spirit and hell being.
Yes, that's right.
And how actually do they die and get a rebirth? Because they don't.
You know,
like,
the length of a life is the extent of the karma in that person's mind. And when it runs out, you get another life. And when it runs out, you get another life. I mean, some creatures get an ant, they live for about 2 minutes as an ant and they die again. They get another life. There's plenty of karmic seeds to produce lifetimes. Some lives last a long time, some lives last a short time.
Yeah. And those beings, they can't create karma, right? Or like
create positive karma.
Yeah.
You can only create negative karma.
Yeah.
Of course, because your mind is so miserable. No choice. That's the tragedy.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, darling. Yes, David. Unmute, sweetheart. There you go.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Venerable Romina.
Okay, good.
I was wondering what the karmic effect is when something bad happens in your life. Is there a purifying effect?
Is there what?
karmically?
Sorry.
Is there a purifying effect karmically?
Absolutely. In other words, every time a fruit ripens, that's the end of that seed, isn't it? I mean, isn't that logic with gardening? Every
Sure.
time something ripens, that's the finish of that seed. So that's why that Kabbalah rabbi said, every time something bad happens, we go, great, one less debt to repay. So every time, if you've really got the positive view about karma, every time something unhappy ripens, that's the finishing of that negative karma. Absolutely. So
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
And
Yes.
is there, if I may ask another,
Yes.
is there anything we can do to benefit someone else's karma, say a loved one?
Of course, okay, let's, like say if someone's, yes, of course, if someone's suffering, let's say, mentally or physically, we can't make their karma go away, but we can support them and love them and nourish them and give them medicine and give them support and kindness or give advice. That's how you help other people. So that's the compassion wing. We can't make a person change, but we can give them courage and support so they've got the opportunity to see things differently, for example. That's how we help others. But we can't make their karma go away, but we can support them and love them and help them and advise them. And
So their karma is their own, that's on them.
I mean, it's true, isn't it? If you're like an alcoholic, you can have 72 people tell you to stop drinking alcohol, but you've got to decide to stop drinking alcohol. And then you need to be in an environment that'll support you to do that with loving friends. And you go to AA meeting and everybody else is doing the same thing. So you get courage. So you need to give the person who's suffering appropriate conditions that enables them to do something themselves, to help them do something. You can't force. As we know, you can bring a horse to water. You can't make it drink.
Yeah,
Supporting people and loving them and being wise in your support. That's how we help people, isn't it?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one question in the chat box before Terry.
Yes.
Before Terry, just a minute. Monica asks, can we also protect ourselves from our own mothers if they are abusive towards us?
Of course we must. Listen, this is the part of the problem. I always quote this story, the UNESCO or something always quotes, there's something like 40% of all women who get murdered are murdered by the man in the same bed, meaning close people. And it could be our mum. So we all know the real suffering and dramas emotionally are with close people. So our trouble is we're so foolish and to have so much attachment, we don't know what's good for us. So there we are feeling guilty and neurotic and our mummy abuses us and we don't know how to protect ourselves. We've got to first learn to have the courage, like I said before to Terry, we've got to have the courage to know this is impossible. I cannot handle this. I have to leave my mother. But we're so afraid of what people think. We're afraid of being criticized. And this is our problem. We don't have enough inner strength. We don't have enough self-respect. So we need to know what is good for us. And yes, if your mother's abusive and you can't handle it, leave your mother, please. Of course, it's common sense. And eventually, Tara, when we're really advanced spiritually, it will be like water off a duck's back and we will love our poor, sad mum. But we have to know what we can handle. And this is part of our problem. We don't. We've got no self-confidence. That's why we allow ourselves to be abused. You can almost say that. When we're really serious victims, we completely get abused and we don't know how to protect ourselves. So we have to get this inner strength first. We can't help other people until we can help ourselves. This is really vital. Yes, thank you.
Monica says, thank you. That's a big relief.
Be brave, Monica. But something else, Monica, remember, the only reason you're going to leave your mum is because you can't handle the poor woman. Don't blame your mum. You can't handle it. So be humble and respectful and realize you've got to keep away from her. And then one day you'll forgive her and it'll be okay. But don't forgive her yet. No, don't worry about that. Work on yourself. Take care of yourself. Grow yourself. That's really important.
And one question from Juhi, and then we'll go with you, Terry. Juhi asks, I think we answered it before, but can parents proactively purify their healthy children's karma? She has 3 children under 10 years old.
No, I said before, you can't. Karma just means the person's personality, the person's own past experiences ripening in the present. That's personal. But we can be supportive and loving and kind and helpful. That's the way you help others. You know, that's the way you help others. That's the answer. The same as I said before to David.
And then Terry.
As I said to Terry. Yes, Terry, what's your question, darling?
Is positive karma same than dharma?
I beg your pardon, sweetheart?
Is positive karma same with dharma?
No, not really. Dharma is a general term they use in Sanskrit that's referring to the spiritual teachings. It's a general term referring to spiritual teachings.
So dharma is not like, dharma does not mean actions that are giving like a positive and legally correct results.
I don't understand your question, Terry.
Because prior, what I learned about dharma, that it's like the opponent of karma. If karma is like...
No, darling, I think of these Sanskrit words, we get so complicated. Keep it simple. Karma is a general word that refers to the natural law that everything we think and do and say programs our own mind. That's it. And then second, the word dharma is equivalent to the term spiritual practice.
Okay.
That's it, darling.
Okay.
So yes, anybody in the room has a question? Yes, sweetheart.
I have a follow-up question to the lion.
Yes, Fabienne.
So wouldn't you rather get reborn as a dog in a really beautiful household, not having to kill and everything, rather than being born as a human and not being able to practice the Dharma?
Yeah, but as a human, you've always got the chance to practice.
Yes,
haven't you?
and that makes a difference.
Oh God, yeah. Yes. I mean, okay, I'll just tell you this, and this is a shock to us again, but Lama Zopa Rinpoche said one time that if we could just for a moment have a direct experience of the mind of an ordinary dog, the mental suffering would be so unbearable that we couldn't stand to ever waste another millisecond of this precious human life. So that's shocking to us. We don't think a dog suffers because we don't see their mind, but we have no conception, according to the Buddha's view, of the mental suffering of having ignorance and the delusions and the narrow mind of an animal. It's very shocking to hear this. Are you with me?
Yes.
So,
and
go
I
on.
understand.
Yeah.
I have another question. So
Yeah.
I understand if you have the tendency to play piano well, it's because you've done it multiple times in your past lives.
Yes.
But what about like if you need a physical thing to do something well, for example, singing, like some people just don't really have the voice to sing well. Would your consciousness then choose a body that will produce a nice thing.
Consciousness, you don't choose. First of all, it's really important to remember we're not at the level of being able to choose.
Not yet.
Only the highest beings can actually choose because they're incredibly powerful. They see their past karma, they've realized emptiness, they know exactly what's going on. We are just like we're like the victims of our past karma, if you like. And so that's why we've got to at least create virtuous karma and allow it to ripen. So I didn't quite get to what that, just didn't have a voice. What do you mean by that?
No, maybe choose was the wrong word,
Okay.
but I'm struggling to understand if you how can I explain? If you need the physical how do you say that in English? Let's say if you want to play the piano well, you don't need to.
No, I understand.
have
The singer one, I
perfect
understand.
hands.
You need a good voice. So what's the question about that? What's the question about needing a good voice? You know, you're asking what's the cause of having a good voice? That's karma. Everything's karma. The shape of your nose, the eyelashes, how many you have, you know, the size of your arms, the type of voice you have, everything is the fruit of your past actions. We create the causes for every single tiny thing we have, good or bad, negative or positive. That's the principle to keep trying to apply. It's important to get the broadest principle possible. Every tiny thing that ever happens to us is a fruit of past action. Every tiny way that our body is, your voice, everything happens to you, how you're seen, how you're treated, what you do, what you think, what you can do, what you can't do. Every tiny thing is a fruit of a collective, in other words, we're the collection of billions of karmic seeds. We are, at this moment in time, you are the collection of billions of karmic seeds that you created, and it's called the package called Fabienne. Do you understand? Okay. What else, people? Samuel, talk to me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Samuel.
My question is, if a person, for example, gets hit by a lightning.
Yes, Samuel, I can't hear you at all.
If a person,
we've got no.
If a person gets hit by a lightning bolt.
Microphone now. No speaker. And no speaker. Hello, Samuel. There?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sweetheart. Thank you.
Okay. So if a person, for example, gets hit by a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Then this
Samuel, you always have these hilarious questions, Samuel. You've got, honey child, you can answer them yourself. Go on, though, ask it anyway.
Okay, so it is the product of both his karma and the physical environment, the cloud, the electricity,
Sweetie,
right?
we are a combination of body and mind. Karma, past action is the first cause, and then the present cause is that seed is triggered. The ripening of that seed to die is triggered by the lightning bolt. In exactly the same way that young nun had a helicopter crash, which is the external condition that normally would kill you, but she had such virtuous non-killing karma that even a helicopter crash didn't kill her. You have to have all the conditions together for the things to happen. The first cause is always karma, and then the secondary cause is the conditions.
So is there an explanation? How do the first cause and the conditions work together?
What do you mean first cause, Samuel?
The karma, I mean, the main
What
cause.
do you mean by first cause, baby?
I wanted to say the main cause, the karmic cause.
So what's the question again?
How does the main cause, the karmic cause, and the condition work together?
Well, how does the seed and the sun work together? You know about the weather, you understand how much warmth you need, you plant your seed in a certain time, the sun comes, you give it water, and guess what? The rose will pop up. You have to learn the laws, baby. That's the answer.
Okay.
I can't tell you the exact answer, but if it is a natural law, Samuel, the explanations are there to be known. That's the broad answer. Can you hear me? Are you satisfied by it?
No.
I can tell. Well, think about it, precious.
Because
that's why I try to get the broadest view possible. Okay. You know, we're all the time asking, why does a rose pink? And why does the sun hit the flower at that time? You learn the bloody laws of botany. And then you'll get the answer. I can do my best to give you answers to all these individual questions. But the broad point is, it's a natural law. If it's a natural law, you can learn it. So we learn the basic principles first. The principles to learn first is don't kill, Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat on a partner, don't this, don't that. Why? Because you know at least that will ripen as your future suffering, and I don't want future suffering. So you play safe, you live in vows, you purify. And as you progress, developing your mind, getting realizations, you'll get ever more subtle, ever more subtle, ever more subtle, and know exactly the answer to why a rose is pink at 3 in the morning and something blah, blah, blah. If it's a natural law, it is knowable.
Okay.
Are we
Good.
communicating?
Yeah.
Good,
Thank you.
sweetheart. I'm happy. I said bloody. That's what Australians say. I say it in America, they freak out. One lady on the phone company, you want to sue me. I said, no, we just say ordinary in Australia. It's not swear at all, really. She was a bit shocked. Okay, any other questions, Ben? So what I'm trying to do all the time, see, when you study it in the land room, they just tell you facts. Do this and do that, and you'll go to hell, and you'll do this and you get that. It's like too shocking for our minds. For me, it's like the broader point is the point. It's a natural law. No one runs it. It's not punishment. It's not reward. There are 4 kinds: body, tendencies, experiences, environmental. These are the principles to apply, you know. The very basic starting process. Given that I don't want the heaviest level of suffering in the future, taking this as my hypothesis, then logically I will not want to kill. I will not want to steal. I will not want to lie. I will not want to cheat on a partner. Minimum, bare bones kind of recommendations, medicine from the Buddha. At least you play safe and attempt to practice virtue, live in vows, purify your mind, general. And then as you progress, it gets more subtle, more sophisticated. We get more advanced, you know, the principles, the fundamental principles, which is implying that I'm owning responsibility, that I know my mind, that I'm having confidence that my mind will continue in the future when I die. And if it does continue, I want at least another decent human mother. I want at least decent conditions, and I want to continue to practice my spiritual path. So if I want that result, I'd better learn to know what seeds to plant now. That's the bare minimum, you know. And slowly, slowly, we get used to this view and understand these 4 ways that karma ripens, that we can put the thinking together ourselves. It just takes time, though, because it's a very different view. You know. What else, people?
Julie has a question in the
Good,
chat.
Julie, speak to me, sweetheart. Good,
She
Julie.
asked,
Go on, talk to me.
I'll ask for her, I think.
Okay.
If we do euthanasia for animals to prevent suffering, do we incur negative karma?
Okay, so if you kill your animal, it's called killing. I know we like to say euthanize. We love to use fancy Greek words. Was that Latin? Greek. So the question is, what is the karma of killing your animal with a good motivation to stop suffering? That's the question, isn't it? So let's look at that exactly. This is the next level I want to talk about. It'll be only a little bit today, but it'll be going on next week in much more detail, but now it's a good start. So, okay. So any action we do, if it's going to bring a complete result, there need to be 4 things in place when we do it. So let's say killing, to be a complete action of killing, in order for it to sow a seed and put it into my main bank vault, in order for it to ripen as my future suffering rebirth, there need to be 4 things in place when I do that action. The first is there needs to be an object of the action, and clearly that's a living being, my pussycat. Second, there is my mind involved in doing the action. And there's several parts there, but I'll just keep it simple. There are 2 main things there. One is the intention, not motivation, but intention, bare bones, volition. I will kill my pussycat, although of course you use the verb euthanize, I understand, or we call it putting it down, or we call it putting it to sleep. But let's keep it simple and call it killing, taking the life of your pussycat. So the intention is there. You do have the intention. I will kill my pussycat. But now let's look at the second part, your motivation. So clearly, as you just said, it's to stop your poor suffering pussycat from suffering. So you could argue your motivation is compassion. Third component to be in place to qualify as a complete action of killing is you do the action, or you get your vet to do it for you. Fourth, the result, dead pussycat, roughly speaking. That's called a complete action of killing. Now, the factor in there that plays the major role that is in another situation, let's say you have the mouse in your kitchen, you have, number two, you have the intention to kill it, but your motivation is aversion, you hate mice. Three, you do the action for dead mouse. Exactly the same scenario, but look at the difference. The one thing that is different is the motivation. So you could argue if I kill that mouse with anger, that's obviously a heavy negative action. That's what makes killing so heavy on the planet, because it's done out of anger. You don't kill out of love normally. I mean, in this case, we can say you're killing out of compassion. So you could argue, first of all, from your point of view, not the cat yet. We've got to look at the cat yet. From your point of view, compassion, you know, killing with compassion for you isn't too bad. In my case, killing the mouse with anger, that's a typical negative action. And what makes it negative and what makes it cause the future suffering for me is the anger. But now listen, you just said you want to stop your cat from suffering. Perfect. But the Buddha's view is, remember, that your pussycat will get another life. Your pussycat's mind will continue and take another rebirth after you kill it. So surely, if you've got that view, which is tough for us in the West, you've got to think, well, I don't want my pussycat to get another suffering rebirth as another pussycat or a lion, not to mention another suffering realm. At least I want my pussycat to get a decent human rebirth. Now, you don't have clairvoyance. You cannot say with certainty that when you kill your pussycat, but you can guarantee that a virtuous karmic seed of your own pussycat will ripen and ensure that she gets a nice human mummy in the next life and has a spiritual practice and meets the Dalai Lama. You can't guarantee that because you're not clairvoyant. So we shouldn't play Russian roulette with our pussycat, basically. You mean well. For you, the karma's not too bad, but meaning well is not enough. You need wisdom, as Lama Zopa says. It's like playing Russian roulette, you know, or I've got a headache. And you have compassion, you want to alleviate my suffering, but you just forget whether the pill is cyanide or aspirin. Thank you very much. I'll ask you to mind your own business and keep your pill to yourself, unless you're certain that the pill you give me will alleviate my pain. And we're not certain, we're not clairvoyant. So the Buddhist approach is because you're not certain that your pussycat will definitely get another decent human rebirth, you don't play games with it. You help it to be as peaceful as possible. You can give it drugs to calm the pain down, and you help it die really well. You play mantras for it. You keep it safe and secure and loving and kind, and allow it to die as peacefully as possible. That's the very best we can do, because we're not qualified with the wisdom to know definitely the future results for that pussycat. That's the logic behind it. So it needs to be thought about. I hope that helped, Julie. Anybody else has a question to ask? We'll go to this in more depth next week.
Juhi has a follow-up question.
Good, Julie. What is it, darling?
Juhi, she wants to know then, what if the child shows tendency of anger?
What
child?
Which child?
Go
Sorry,
ahead,
Juhi. Talk to
Juhi.
me, darling. Speak to me, Juhi.
Yeah, the question earlier was that if a parent proactively wants to purify their healthy child's karma, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you said that's not possible. It's
Well, I mean, you can't. No. You can help a child by giving it supportive environment, by loving and kind and wise and supportive, and then the child can have space to do changes in their own mind, or at least you prevent them from harming. As a child, they can't do much. We've got not much control, have we? So what's the actual? So say the question again, sweetheart.
So the question is that my 9-year-old is getting interested in Buddhism through me, and I talk to her about it. Especially at night, we play mantras.
Good, yes.
A really nice Vajrasattva mantras, just while we are both dozing off.
Yes.
And she asks me that, will this help me the way it's going to help you with your anger?
Of course it will.
And
You
that's
tell her,
such a deep question. It's a very deep, insightful question. So I was like, I will ask my teacher. That's what I told
Good,
her.
darling. Of course, I mean, this is the thing. First, you've got to have an understanding of these Sanskrit mantras. I mean, this is a bit esoteric, but you know, of course, anything that's related to the Buddhas that you say can only benefit the mind, can purify the mind. So of course it will help your darling child. Of course you tell her yes. Absolutely, sweetheart. Good.
And if she meditates with me, if she sits down with me for 5 minutes.
Of course, darling, but even that, see, meditating means you've got to do something with your mind. Just because she sits doesn't mean she's meditating.
I
But
agree.
seeing you do it, seeing the holy images, saying the mantras, you being a good example, this is a huge way to help her, darling. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Great.
Absolutely. Wonderful, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Well done. What else, people? Anybody? Questions? Am I shouting more than normal tonight? No, I think
Not
I
more
am.
than normal.
Not more than. Oh, I exhaust myself.
I have a question.
Go, darling.
A few million years ago, there were no.
Start again, what?
A few million years ago, there were no humans, no animals.
On this planet, yes.
So do the realms change? Due to
Okay. Honestly, this is what it sounds a bit like science fiction. So we take the view that minds are beginningless. Right there, this view, which is insane. If we take the scientific view, the physical view, it's a demented idea, right, isn't it? That minds are beginningless. Because as far as we're concerned, the whole universe is our planet, and there was the Big Bang, and then we grew from there, and we're trying to work out where humans come from, so forth, so forth. But the Buddhist view is minds, consciousnesses are beginningless. So that implies straight away that there have to be realms. A realm is just a state of mind. So a hell mind is a particular configuration of certain tendencies, ripening and suffering. A God realm mind is a state of being. So a human mind is also a state of being. It's what defines a human, this is where it's very different from the scientific view. We talk about the humans coming from monkeys, right? That wouldn't be a possibility because we're talking about the physical one. A human, what characterizes a human is access to virtue. So an actual real human, I think maybe only a few thousand years ago humans began on this planet. There might have been monkeys and the Neanderthals and all those dudes, but they weren't human. So at some point, a particular type of physical condition on this planet became conducive for minds from other universes to come and be born in a human mummy, acting like a human. I mean, I remember hearing on the BBC World Service one time that in India, these, what are the people who search? Anthropologists, is it? What do they do? Anthropologists? What are they? They look into
archaeologists?
No, another one. Anthropologists, where they look into humans and things. One of those people. Anyway.
Yeah.
They looked into the Hindus environment, and they found evidence of certain societies that had no weapons. Now that sounds to me like real humans. That's human, where there's no anger, no violence, no wish to harm, the predominance of virtue. Eons before this planet, a human birth was a subtle being with subtle light bodies. Human is just a label for a mind. They've been beginningless. This is nutty with the Western view. So at some point, the physical condition was appropriate to be born on this planet, but actually it's a degeneration. We ended up being born looking like a bunch of apes, sharing the same DNA practically. Do you see what I'm saying? At some point, I think that must have been the beginning of the humans. It wasn't the monkeys for sure, because we're looking only at the physical evolution. Do you understand? That's my way of putting it, interpreting, taking these views, What else, folks? I'm out of here tomorrow, so make the most of me. Shouting, make the most of my shouting. Yes.
I have a question on the 4 elements you mentioned.
Yes. Yes.
And you mentioned the 2 examples of killing with anger and killing out of compassion.
Yes, exactly.
And if you apply this to an abortion.
If what?
If you apply this to.
If what, darling? If what?
The 4 elements with the motivation.
I don't understand 4 elements of motivation, how the connection there.
Yeah, and the 4 elements of the complete karma, I think it is.
Oh, sorry, those 4 elements. You mean the 4 conditions that need to be in place in order to have a complete karma that leaves a seed in your bank vault that ripens as a future type of rebirth. Right. Okay. Then.
And now regarding the motivation in case of an abortion.
Yeah.
So there I find it kind of more difficult to, so you said if it's out of anger, obviously.
Anger, we can see it, anger kind of causes pretty intense suffering, doesn't it? Yeah. And it's the most intense mental state. But I had an abortion. I can only talk about myself, okay? I had an abortion when I was 23. I didn't think about it as a being. I've been a Catholic, but I didn't think of it that time. I knew more than anything, the prevailing thing for me was I didn't want what came out in 9 months. It was crystal clear to me, which also interestingly, you could argue is the karma between me and that being. They had the karma so strongly to be dead, to die, and I was the catalyst for it. We had mutual karma. So I just made a decision, no discussion, easy. Had the abortion. I remember I felt lucky because it was in England in 1968, and the National Health had just legalized abortion. So I felt really fortunate. Everything happened really easily. So my motivation was attachment, completely self-centered. It wasn't anything to do with compassion. It was no other reason. I did not want a baby. So I can argue my attachment, my motivation wasn't evil. I didn't want to slaughter this baby. I got depressed afterwards. I never got depressed. I didn't know why. I didn't think about it. I wasn't aware, you know. So my motivation was self-centered, I would argue. But everyone, we can see everybody's action. We can characterize positive and negative, but there's enormous difference in every single one. You know, each person's got a specific environment. They've got certain tendencies, you know, different in situation, different motivation. But I'd say in general, when we harm another, including killing our pussycat, even though we think it's compassion, it's out of ignorance. If we really knew what would happen to the cat, we would never dare do it, but we don't think a cat will have another rebirth. So our wisdom is not there. Our compassion is there, but not the wisdom. With me, in the case of my abortion, it was attachment, self-centeredness. I didn't want this thing, you know. I'm not being rude about myself. It's just a fact. So that's not virtuous. You know, it's not a virtuous motivation. I wasn't doing it out of compassion for the baby. Every single person is a bit different. So we have to clear what is a negative, what is positive, what are the variations of these in a very clear-eyed way, not guilty and neurotic, you know, knowing our minds. That's why anyway, if we purify every day, we've done millions of actions out of ignorance. We meant well so often. So we don't want suffering ourselves, so we purify because we don't want suffering. And then we can have compassion for those we've harmed. That's why purification practice is so powerful. Do you understand? Yeah. It's got nothing to do with guilt. Not guilt at all, you know. We usually have so much guilt. Guilt's inappropriate. It's ridiculous, you know. What else? Anything else on screen here?
Oh.
No, Tara?
No chat box. Anyone out there?
All right, darlings. Okay.
One question.
Yes.
The happy feelings or suffering feelings are triggered from past results as well.
Yes.
How does it fit in with the 4 results that you mentioned?
Can we leave till next week?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
We'll go
Keep it in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good topic, but it's too late today.
Okay.
But go on, there's still time. We'll go, okay.
David has a quick.
Oh, yes.
Oops, sorry,
David.
David.
Go, David. And Terry has a question too. Good. Go, David.
Yes, Venerable. What about mental illness? Is that a karmic result?
Everything any mind experiences in terms of the tendencies and your own mind, absolutely. Of course it is, David. Everything that's in there, a person's, I mean, you know, I don't joke when I say that Buddha's basically saying that the extent to which we have attachment and anger, ordinary attachment, ordinary anger, is anyway the extent to which we're mentally ill. We're all mentally ill. It's a question of degree. So we can see some people are extremely mentally ill with incredible suffering, incredible paranoia, incredible mental illness. It's so true. Yes, of course, it's from the tendencies in that person's mind. You know, of course, it can't not be. There's only that cause. There's only that. It can't not be. Everything, whatever grows in our lives is the fruit of seeds we planted in that mind.
Right.
It can't be any other.
Is there anything, you know, if they're not in a state where they're capable of,
yeah, of course,
seeing
that's
it
right.
themselves or doing anything about it, can anything be done for them other than just, you know, kindness and compassion?
But I mean, other than, that's the most important one. I mean, if one person who's even slightly depressed has one kind human being in their life, this is the miracle. So this is the major one. I mean, not if you also have wisdom, but loving kindness is already unbelievable. Loving kindness plus wisdom to know how to help that person. Wow, how fortunate that person is.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Thank you. Yes.
And at least if you've got a person who's not capable of doing anything for themselves, this is where, like, whether it's a child or your old grandma who's, you know, got Alzheimer's, it's protecting them. You protect them, give them love and kindness and protection. This is the miracle of kindness. This is the most precious thing. And add on top of that, if you've got incredible wisdom and know their mind and know their karma, you will know how to help them. That's only when we're very advanced, you know?
Yeah. The issue I keep confronting is you can lead the horse to water, but you can't
Yeah.
make it drink. And it's so frustrating when you see people struggling with
Of course.
addiction.
That's
or
right.
life on the street, homelessness.
That's right. Exactly. And that's where we do feel hopeless, because we see so much suffering in the planet. But that's where, one, if we understand karma, we'll know at least why it's happening, and we won't get frustrated. And then we will have, if we're trying to be on the bodhisattva path, that'll give us courage to continue to develop ourselves, so we will eventually be capable of helping others. It's giving you courage, to never stop. And that courage causes you to stay optimistic and to do what we can, second by second, for each sentient being, one at a time. That's all we can do, David. If we don't stay optimistic, we'll all drown together.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay. I think it's time to finish, isn't it? What do you think, Jeff? Time to go? Nina?
Almost.
Almost?
Yes.
Nina's going to say something. Oh, there's now somebody else. Terry, hang on. Terry's got a question. What's your question, darling?
Okay, how far do we need to be purified the karmic matters and illnesses internally prior we can honestly?
I don't understand your question, precious girl. Say it more clearly, darling.
How much do we need to clear the karma of our own in order to be there to benefit other people?
In order to do what?
Benefit other people in action.
Darling, it's like asking me the question. Let's say you see somebody who's got, who's very sick physically, and you're asking me, how much knowledge do I need in order to help them? That's up to you to learn nutrition. And even if you learn one little bit of nutrition, Terry, it's to that degree you can help. So the more nutrition you learn, and of course, we're talking here mental nutrition, the more you work on your own mind, the more you understand the mind, the more you understand karma for yourself, the more you're qualified to help others, Terry. It goes to an incredible degree. So you don't wait till you've perfected anything. You start helping now, according to your ability. Do you understand me?
Yes, understood.
Good, darling.
Juhi,
yes,
if you're still okay, Venerable, Juhi has a
go
question.
for it, sweetheart. Ask a question here.
Juhi.
Go.
I thought Julie had one about euthanasia.
That's done already. We did it.
Oh, okay. I have one that is not related to karma. It's about mind and matter. Can I ask that?
Let's have a look at the question.
Okay, it comes from my daughter again.
Go on.
She asked me, what did mind look like when matter was being created?
Tell her mind is not physical. It's very subtle. It's feeling and emotion. And if there's always been matter, there's always been mind. They both go back to beginningless time, tell her. All
so
right.
Nothing came first. She asked
Nothing came first. They come together, tell her. Good
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Good, darling. Okay.
Thank you.
Over to Nina. She wants to say something.
No, but I'm speaking to you. So
Oh, I know. I'm all right. I better face you.
So I try to make everybody see me.
Okay.
So it's really a major inconvenience, and I'm sure that many of you have experienced it recently. If you tried to go somewhere recently, even not that far, it's not very pleasant to travel at the moment. So
don't be ridiculous. I'm loving it.
It's a huge effort.
It's not true. Don't make me a martyr. I enjoy travel.
But it can also be dangerous, though.
Oh, shut up! It's not dangerous.
because it's the time of the pandemic. So the fact that you got on the plane and came all the way to Zurich, Verbo, we are so grateful. And you came to shout the words of Dharma into our minds and hearts, and we are really infinitely grateful for that. So you guys all sent through donations, and we prepared a little gift for Venerable. I wanted to show it to everybody, of course, together with your donations as well. And Venerable, we wanted to request that you always continue to teach us. So to make it happen,
as long as I've got a shouting voice, I will teach.
We prepared a new carry-on for you.
Oh, come on, God, look at that.
I hope it somehow makes it to the US.
Okay.
And we wanted to request that you live long. So we have a print of Medicine Buddha Sutra for you.
Okay, good. Well done.
To keep.
I'll do my
And
best.
we would like to offer it on behalf of everybody here.
I will
online,
take it.
but,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Here
much.
it is.
for
It's a
your
long,
time.
long gift. Look, look, look. See?
From all of us.
And there's that, and then there's that. All these components. And a cutter as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't promise I'll live long, but I'll bully death away. Okay? Maybe I'll have to hop onto the skirts of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's promised the Tibetans to live till he's 110. So I'll probably stay in his shadow, and I might get the benefit. Okay.
Great.
Okay. So we can dedicate. Go on, last dedicate.
We would like to do the long life prayer.
Yeah. Okay. Do it just quickly. That's fine.
Okay, he's switching the screen.
Okay. Good. All right. Go on then.
Okay, a prayer for the long life of Venerable Rabina Corton, Mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times and 10 directions, Dharmakaya, the great bliss embraced by great compassion. My perfect Aryatara, who is in ordinary form, are the guide for as pitiful transmigrating beings left guideless. How kind you are. May all your wishes be instantly fulfilled, and may your life be subtle until samsara ends. Almighty One, you who destroy all the enemy of delusions, you who reveal the Dharma of scripture and realization, spreading it in the mental continuum of transmigrating beings, thereby eliminating the 2 obscurations, including their imprints. How kind you are. May all your wishes be instantly fulfilled, and may your life be stable until samsara ends. By the blessings of the Guru, the deity and the Dharma protectors, and unbetraying actions and their results, as well as the truth of ultimate reality in all my lifetimes, may I only please and never displease for even 1 second the Guru, and may all the vital points of my prayers be fulfilled.
Okay, so we just do the little dedication prayer. So I'll just dedicate this one. Start with no, keep going. There we go. So we think in English, due to this virtue, meaning as a result of all this hard work we've done this last 2 hours and all this week, meaning every seed we've planted in our mind from listening, thinking, analyzing, contemplating all of this stuff, and we've planted millions of seeds, so we're so delighted. May all these seeds ripen as the Buddha, as our own Buddhahood, so we can indeed be of benefit to sentient beings. That's the point that Dave is making. That's the courage we have to get. The world is a nightmarish place. There's unbearable suffering on this planet. And we have to have the courage of the bodhisattvas to never give up. That's the key to success. We see it, we understand why it is, and that's the basis of our unbearable compassion to sentient beings, because we don't realize we create our own suffering. That's what they say, the bodhisattvas have such compassion because we don't realize cause and effect. Then that encourages us. We know why it's happening, and we then never give up. Working on ourselves, developing more and more power, more and more compassion, so we'll never stop helping others. That's what gives us courage. So may that happen as a result of these karmic seeds we've all planted together this week or 2 weeks, whatever it is. And next one. And then we think, may the precious, this amazing, outrageous bodhicitta, what it is not compassion, it's the culmination of compassion. What bodhicitta means is literally awakening thought. What it refers to is this outrageous kind of paradigm shift in the mind where only others now, because you've done the work on yourself, only others are there. And only 2 parts, only the wish to benefit whoever's in front of you, and second, the long-term goal of never giving up, becoming a Buddha, because then you're perfectly qualified to help. So may that not yet born in the minds of others rise and grow, and may that which has arisen, may it never decline. That's it. And may His Holiness Dalai Lama live long, and Lama Zopa live long, and all our teachers live long, because the world needs them badly. And may we live long. Anybody attempting to be a better person, the world needs badly. So never give up, and be rejoicing and delighted in your incredible practice, and never give up, and delight in the work here Lakshman is doing, all the kind of people who work for this place and support it and make it grow so it can be a benefit to sentient beings. It's incredible. I'm very delighted. So that's it, people. I'll see you next week from wherever I'll be. I forget where I'll be. Where I'll be on the 8th, 9th, 9th. Oh, I'll be in England. Okay? No,
Yeah.
I won't. Yes, I will.
Leeds.
Stockholm. No, I'm in Stockholm tomorrow. And then Tuesday, the 8th. No, I'll be in England. I think. I'll be in England. So then from there, I'll see you next week. Okie doke. Thank you, darling. Goodbye.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravina.